Okay, I've now sewn all the corners together with the 1/2 inch seam allowance using a straight stitch. And the next thing I'm going to do is to seam open with an iron these corners. Now, obviously, if you're using vinyl, you do not want to seam it. I would just, if you were using vinyl, I would just sort of, try and finger it open like that. Alright, so I need to see the one corner that I didn't quite cut it straight, but that's okay. So it's going to be on the bottom. I'm not sure what happened there, but somehow I got off. Okay. Now all your corners are flattened, and the next thing that I'm going to do is going to be to start pinning the top to the edges, or the edges to the top, I should say, more like. Okay, so I'm going to lay my piece down, and again, I need to look at it, so I'm looking at it straight, and knowing that, knowing that this is going to be the front edge of my bench, I'm going to take it and line it up with the front top and the front edge, and then just flip it upside down. Okay? That's where we'll start. Okay, so then what you're going to do is just pull up this corner that you made here, and we'll keep lining this up. Now as you pull it up, you can sort of fold it over a little bit, and you'll get a good idea where that corner is. See the corner right here? And then you start pinning. So we'll pin right at the corner. You'll start pinning on the edges. And you want to make sure that you keep your edges together so that it's, nice and even there. And you'll keep going down that way. And with it still in the corner here, I'll pin this short edge a little bit. And then you keep going here. And then the same thing with the back. Pull it up in the corner. And pin it. I'm going to fill all those in too with pins. I'm just kind of trying to do it quickly and pin it. Now, keep going around, and you're going to keep pinning it like that. Uh-oh, I think I just sneezed. Keep pinning it around, and then the next thing that we're going to do is sew it with the 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now, you are not going to pin this part and this part, okay? This needs to remain loose. So just pin up to it, but don't pin it itself, okay? And then we'll start with the sewing in a second. Okay, I've now finished pinning all the way around and made the box type form. The next thing we're going to do is work on this corner just a little bit more here. And if you take this seam and flatten it down, you'll see that the edges kind of stick over the side of the box. So what I'm going to do is just trim a little bit, not much, don't cut your seam, off that corner, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is take a pin and pin this flap at the very bottom. So if you run your fingers around there, you'll feel where the bottom is, and kind of close to the 1/2 inch seam allowance we're about ready to do. Okay, just give you a little extra security as you do this. Then take another pin and flatten your seam allowance down evenly at like a 45-degree angle. You're going to flatten that and pin it. It doesn't have to be pinned perfectly. You're just kind of pinning it so that you can sew your 1/2 inch allowance all the way around the edge here without this getting in the way. So you're basically just pinning it down out of the way. Okay, next step is to sew it. So I have my machine set, whoopsie, at a straight stitch. And like I said, we're going to do 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now I'm just going to start here in the center. Not the center, but near the corner here. You definitely don't want to start this in a corner. Bad idea. Okay. Of course, I'm trying to work this at a very strange angle so that I'm trying to keep my head out of the camera. Okay, so I have my 1/8 inch, and when you start, you're always going to want to back stitch. Hear that? And then we're going to take and sew all the way, not quite to the corner, because we don't want to do a pivot turn. We actually want to angle this across the corner of that seam allowance that we folded over. So that might be about right. Let's see. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so I'm going to come across it at an angle and put about 2 stitches in there. Is good. Maybe 3. And I'm actually going to go back across it a little bit. Then you can pivot. Alright, and continue on with your 1/2 inch allowance. And you're going to do that for all 4 sides, all 4 corners, and then after that, we're going to punch out those corners right side out and see if this thing fits.